Good evening. I'm Sheree Stomm, S-T-O-M. I'm a concerned citizen from Lebanon County. I'd like to address my comments this evening to the subject of cumulative impacts. Thank you. She yelled at me. Those impacts that result from the past, present, and reasonably foreseeable future actions associated with the existence of this pipeline. In a recent decision, the D.C. Circuit Court ruled that FERC failed to properly address these impacts in its review of pipeline construction. This agency has been obstinate in its refusal to consider the impacts of fracking in pipeline projects. In its approval of the Mark I project, FERC stated that Marcellus Shale development and its potential associated environmental impacts are not sufficiently causally related to the pipeline. That's just nonsense. What is Atlantic Sunrise without the 1.7 million decatherms per day of fracked gas it is designed to carry? It's nothing but miles and miles of totally useless pipe, and therefore completely unnecessary. No gas, no pipeline. The gas propelled down the length of this pipeline must have a destination. Where is it intended to be used? Alan Armstrong, Williams' CEO, knows the answer to that question. In his press release announcing first quarter 2014 results, Armstrong states that Atlantic Sunrise will serve as important infrastructure for future LNG export facilities at Cove Point. Apparently, Mr. Armstrong neglected to mention that to his spokesperson here tonight. Not once in her statement did she mention Cove Point, did she mention LNG processing, or did she say the word export. In its recent ruling, the D.C. Circuit Court stated that once FERC is aware of the interrelatedness of proposed projects, it must take care to review any cumulative environmental impacts that might arise. Based on Mr. Armstrong's statement, LNG processing at Cove Point certainly qualifies as a reasonably foreseeable result from the existence of this project, and Atlantic Sunrise and Cove Point are interrelated. Finally, in spite of FERC's own guidance that pipelines follow existing rights-of-way, a large part of this pipeline is greenfield-sided. These fresh, unobstructed, wide-open spaces, once scarred by this project, are likely to be used again and again to accommodate the gas industry. After all, isn't one of the reasons that Williams gives for using this path the fact that their existing corridor is at capacity? Isn't it reasonably foreseeable that this new right-of-way will be used until it is at capacity? FERC's recent loss in the courts should certainly be a reminder to them to give the issue of the siting of multiple pipelines serious consideration. These types of projects are harmful to local communities. They damage the environment, and this process damages the community's trust in a government that was intended to be of the people, by the people, and for the people, not for the corporation at the expense of the people. I ask those residents here tonight, are you ready to fight this process in a different way? Are you ready to stand up and demand that your local government work with you to protect your community from corporate harms? Are you ready to create a community bill of rights that gives you the power to say no? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Karen Green, spelled just like the color, and I would like to comment generally on agricultural impacts from the proposed pipeline. My comments are not highly technical, as I am not currently a farmer myself, although that will likely change in the near future. However, I have co-founded and support local farm markets, advocated to sustain small local farms to public and private sector entities at the federal, state, and local levels through employment and volunteer activities, and my extended family farms over 100 acres about a mile west of the proposed pipeline in South Londonderry Township, Lebanon County, which is also adjacent to the property where my husband and I currently reside. Pennsylvania's 62,000 farm families are the stewards of more than 7.7 million acres of farmland, with $6.8 billion in receipts annually from production agriculture. Pennsylvania farmers and agribusinesses are by far the leading economic driver in our state. While our neighbor Lancaster County gets a little more PR, Lebanon County is dominated by agriculture and forests, with agriculture composing just under 100,000 acres, or 43% of the county's total land area. And those are statistics from the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. The proposed 42-inch, 1480 psi Williams pipeline requires a 100-foot wide new right-of-way along just under 30 miles north-south through Lebanon County. This equates to about 15 million square feet, or 350 acres of just right-of-way alone. And this despite federal requirements to, quote, make every effort to utilize existing rights-of-way. While I don't have some of the exact data that I'd hope to have, I believe ag uses likely encompass the entire area of the proposed right-of-way, including a number of farms preserved in perpetuity by its owners, many for many decades. A number of concerns have also been raised by the Lancaster Farmland Trust, a very large authority, many of which also apply here. First, should pipeline rights-of-way be allowed on preserved farms that have been paid for with taxpayer money? Further, even if pipelines are not prohibited in conservation deeds, a pipeline certainly, quote, impacts the ag benefit to a community, unquote. Next, no-till farming is being implemented widely, and it often takes decades to instill a productive ecosystem and crop yield. But this is not even considering recovery time from pipeline installation, leaks, or explosions that could occur. Corn as a product, which is abundant in Lebanon County, seems to be particularly impacted negatively by this development. Soil compacting has been studied extensively, particularly by the Penn State Extension and College of Agricultural Sciences. While compacted topsoil and upper subsoil may improve, it takes a period of years, but, quote, lower subsoil compaction is basically permanent and should be avoided by all means, unquote. As many of these impacts have been dismissed to date by the industry and state regulators, Penn State University has taken it upon themselves to establish the Institute for Natural Gas Research to perform critical research and education. We hope that this will be not be too late for this current effort. In 2008, a Williams 30-inch gas pipeline near Appomattox, Virginia ruptured and ignited. Everything within a 560-foot radius was destroyed. Earlier that year, an inspection tool detected pipe corrosion. Despite this discovery and repair of 2 neighboring pipelines, Williams judged the pipe did not require repair. For a 42-inch pipeline, as is being proposed, the hazard distance is over 1,100 feet. In the case of a farm, buildings, including dwellings, barns, equipment storage, etc., within about a quarter of a mile of the rupture would be destroyed, and people within that zone would literally not be able to run to safety. As was noted by some of the previous speakers, if this pipeline is approved, clearly there will be further expansion proposed in the future, particularly as its use seems to be for international exports. This would likely involve laying another pipeline alongside the current one, due in large part to previously noted federal requirements and encouragement that new pipelines be constructed along existing rights-of-way. Williams filings to date note installation another 25 feet from an existing pipeline, infringing yet again into the many acres of ag lands that would already have been impacted. In summary, I would request, and I believe on behalf of my extended family, that you do not approve this pipeline. However, if you do approve it, at an absolute minimum, please require all affected ag soils be separated, stockpiled, and replaced in its original condition, which has been done for other projects, and with minimal compaction and avoiding disruption of lower subsoil at all costs. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ellen Litz, J-O space capital E-L-L-E-N, Litz is L-I-T-Z. I'm a Lebanon County Commissioner, and I'm also president of the Swatara Watershed Association. I'd like to point out that tonight is National Night Out, and it's sad, in my opinion, that this meeting divides the community. My role as a public servant is to protect the rights of our citizens and to put their health and safety first. At the Williams-Annville Cleona Open House, I requested and was promised a complete set of maps which were on display for our citizens. Those maps have been delivered just this week and placed on file with our Lebanon County Planning Department so that individuals can go in and not have to make a small window on a given night to be able to review those maps. We also did request of the Board of Commissioners a public meeting that the citizens would like to have in a conversation, questions and answers with Williams. I've been at a commissioners conference the last several days, and I'm not aware if it came in the mail yesterday or today, but as of Friday, I did not have an answer, or the best of my knowledge, my colleagues did not have that answer. As a follow-up to previously submitted comments, Williams provided answers to my questions, but respectfully, the answers provided on eminent domains seem to circumvent these questions. The confiscation of private property for public use, even if a right-of-way is utilized and compensation paid, is still a taking nonetheless. To pretend that such taking doesn't impact the value of land or the production of soil is just plain wrong. In 2013, Lebanon County completed a reassessment where county commissioners made allowances for proven rights of way. Why? Because landowners can't build on a right of way. Depending upon how a right of way crosses a property, land value can be cut in as much as half. If, however, the right-of-way is along a property line where municipal ordinances dictate setbacks to build, there may be little impact upon the assessed value. But most setbacks are not 90 or 100 feet in width, so there will be an impact. And reviewing those maps that I requested, because I had time to sit down and go page by page, it seems to me around page 25 was a really good example of what I'm talking about. There was a very long property, and the area that they were looking at was 100 feet away from the property line. That first 100 feet, there are setbacks. Why not put the pipeline, if it's going to go, within that right-of-way so it doesn't devalue the land, so it's not impacting our schools, it's not impacting our municipalities, and it's not impacting the county's taxes. That would be a lot more fair. Then there are those rights-of-ways that would completely preclude a subdivision plan. We actually had a gentleman in our one of our meetings who claimed that that would happen to his property. When it comes to the land itself, and you've heard eloquently from a farmer, I can't begin to speak to the issue as he did, but I would like to point out that farmers can see reduced yield if the soil is not put back in the same order as the layers are removed. In other words, soils such as clay or shale should not be put into the trench last. I wrote this wrong on my paperwork. I just realized that. The topsoil should be put on last, so it's back on top. But if they put that topsoil in first, it's lost and the production value is very small. Our farmers need this assurance and protection. Of course, my preference is that Williams use their existing rights-of-way. There's little opposition to the rebuilding of existing lines. There's one going on right now through Lebanon County, the Sunoco Mariner East. And Texas Eastern as well. I guess maybe they're related. They're building and expanding their existing rights-of-way, and Williams should do the same on their existing rights-of-way. It's especially troubling that in Lebanon County, the Williams north to south route would cross under 4 existing east to west lines and 7 streams, as well as sinkholes. There has been no clear answer concerning the safety of these maneuvers, nor do we know if other pipelines in the railroad will shut down during installation of a Williams pipeline. There's no room for an error, which would put people, first responders, places, and other utilities into harm's way. Further, if there is an accident, Lebanon County Dispatch could be overwhelmed and the county put into a state of emergency. At this time, I'd like to reemphasize that the Swatara Creek is a state and nationally recognized water trail which leads to the Susquehanna River and Chesapeake Bay, which are also part of the Captain John Smith Water Trail. In addition to preserving historical routes, there's a positive economic benefit to tourism that cannot be diminished or dismissed. Further, the Swatara Creek provides clean water for drinking to the American Water Authority Company, the Lebanon Water Authority, and the Middletown Water Company. Should Williams drill into or otherwise open a sinkhole that drains the Swatara Creek, tens of thousands of people will be negatively impacted. We can't let this happen. Similarly, homes and roads in Lebanon County have been engulfed by sinkholes. It's my understanding that the Williams pipeline proposes to utilize plates, perhaps the size of tabletops, to span sinkholes. Well, right now, I don't know if you came down 422, but that road is closed because we're installing a bridge under the surface of the road to span a sinkhole. That's how big the sinkholes get in Lebanon County. A tabletop pales in comparison. We need proof that when sinkholes occur, causing a shift in the earth, people, first responders, and places will not be put into harm's way. If this cannot be guaranteed, Williams' expansion application should be denied. And like other companies, Williams should run alongside or tunnel under their existing rights-of-way. According to John Dernbach, Widener University Law School, environmental law was adopted May of 1971, then buried for 40 years. Based on the Constitution, the people have a right to clean air, pure water, etc. It's found in Article 1, Section 27. But that didn't just magically appear. This ruling results from a 2012 Commonwealth Court challenge of Act 13. In other words, the public trust is a right. December 19, 2013, the Supreme Court found that the right to clean air and pure water originate in the Bill of Rights, which gives clean air and pure water the same level of rights as free speech, as religion, and as gun ownership. The Supreme Court is the first court in 40 years to recognize this. As a result, environmental interests and developers must work together. The state can say how something is to be done, but local municipalities can say where an activity can take place. So we're back to where we were before the ruling. The right to clean air and pure water won't go back into a bottle. It is our duty to protect public natural resources. Again, this is narrower than the Constitution. The Bill of Rights are the people's rights. Let me say that again. This is narrower than the Constitution. The Bill of Rights are the people's rights. Clean air and pure water we're talking about here. I don't envy your position, but the message from the Supreme Court is clear. It is our duty to focus on the biggest risks and the biggest opportunities. There's no formal definition of clean water. It includes fishing and swimming and drinking, irrigation, supplies for homes and businesses, as well as the quantity of water. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your favorable ruling for the people of Lebanon County and other impacted central Pennsylvania counties.
Good evening. My name is Dennis College. Last name is spelled just like a university. I thank you for your time tonight. I'll keep my remarks as short as I can. I've already filed comments to you in writing. I have many concerns about this project, the proposed Atlantic Sunrise. My biggest concern is what I'll share with you tonight, and that is the safety of the project. I grew up in Belle Grove, North Annville, Lebanon County, 6 or 7 miles from Fort Indian Town Gap, where they routinely hold training exercises with live ammunition that shake the ground to where windows in everybody's houses rattle, much like many people refer to as small earthquakes at times, depending what they're using as ammunition. With the close proximity of this pipeline to Fort Indian Town Gap, I have concerns about what that's going to do to a buried pipe. As the speaker before me already pointed out, where the proposed pipeline is to cross Route 422 at Penzie Supply Quarry, it can't be more than 2 miles from a known sinkhole that's opened up, if not every year, every other year for the last 20 years. They've repaired it numerous times. Nobody knows where sinkholes are going to happen or occur. But that's an awful scary thought to think that we're putting a pipeline within 2 miles of an already known. There's many other things that affect a pipeline and the construction and the safety of it, and I would ask that if it's permitted to go forward, that you would hold Williams accountable. In the past 3 years, it's been reported that there's been numerous pipeline accidents. This is not a company with a good track record. There's many companies that have pipelines in our country, and Williams does not have a good track record. So it would be imperative that you make sure and hold them accountable to building something, if it is approved, that can be built as safe as possible, not as cheap as possible or as quickly as possible, or, as other people have already mentioned, just for the ability to make money by exporting natural gas to other outlets. This should not be a money-making effort. This should be about safety and what's best for not only our community, but all the communities in the path of this proposed pipeline. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Garrus, G-A-H-R-E-S, and I'm sitting here and I'm number 12 on the program, and I'm really impressed with all the comments that that were made here this evening, and I have to say that I agree. I think that most of them are right, but right isn't necessarily a person being, or a particular side being right isn't the right thing to do in all cases. You know, it depends on where you stand. And I think that what I'm going to do is take the road least traveled here and talk about what's wrong. And I think some of the things have been mentioned this evening about what's wrong. First of all, I have a property up in Tioga County where they're doing fracking. And I know what compression stations are, I know what the pipelines look like, I know what the well sites look like, I know what it's like when they're fracking a well. I know what the traffic is on the roads. I know the impact there. I also know, and I'm upset with the present state government, our present governor, who the only state in the union doesn't have a tax on the gas companies. Now, having said that, I guess the problem is I see two big giants. The federal government here, who has endless deep pockets, it seems, of late. And then you have the gas and oil industry, who have very deep pockets also. In fact, they hire some of the very best people out of law school to write contracts that lawyers who are practicing law for a certain amount of time in local counties or state government don't understand. Because I was a victim of that. They use tricky language, or language which is not common to an average person. And I did manage to get a couple of degrees beyond my high school degree. So I think that I should be able to understand a contract, but when I can't understand it, and it's so complicated, where in the first 10 minutes of this meeting we were talking about all kinds of acronyms, and I couldn't tell you what those acronyms were. You see, the government has its own special language, medicine has its own special language, and the gas companies have their own special language, and they take advantage of the people. When they put a gas line through, how much do you get a foot for a gas line? Do you folks know? It depends on who you get to help you with that contract. They might tell you $5 a foot, okay? You get 1,000 feet, what is that, $5,000? Okay? So, you know, but that's not the way it is. You have to ask for the industry standard, and you don't know what they know. You see, because they don't make it public. Numerous people up here were asking for information. It's been withheld or late coming. That's part of the game they play. And you as the federal government, you're going to be winners. Doesn't matter how you folks decide. You walk away and you'll get paid, and you won't be impacted probably. The people out here in the audience are the ones that are going to be impacted. And so they should have more of a say into what's going on here than a company that's going to rape our natural resources, export them to another company, and the jobs that they say they create, well, guess what? They're going to start disappearing as soon as the pipelines are in, as soon as all the fracking is done. And the fellow talked about the pipe. Well, guess what? If the pipelines are now going to do the Keystone pipeline, do you think they're going to pay to have those exported out of there? So, like I said in the beginning of my opening speech, so to speak, everybody was right. The guy with the pipe company, he was right. We do have 240 jobs. And they probably do as much as they possibly can to ensure a good product. But if you have a double wall, wouldn't that be better than a single wall? Seems reasonable to me. So I think it's incumbent upon the federal government to make sure and not turn a blind eye or have this laissez-faire kind of attitude with big business, and start making them pay their way. Instead of shipping it overseas where they can get more money, you know, get jobs in Pennsylvania, get jobs in Maryland, keep jobs in the states so that people are working so that they can pay their taxes. That's what should happen. That's the job of the federal government. The individual people out here cannot fight big business. The federal government should be doing that. And you have been remiss in what you've been doing or not doing. Thank you very much.